On May 24th, it took 77 minutes
What are we waiting on? Does anybody know?
for law enforcement to stop the Robb Elementary shooter.
He's in the class.
You shot kids. Well, there's kids in there too.
Ruben, she said she shot Johnny.
But what happened after he was killed
EMTs! Get my med kit. There's a chest
was just as important in saving as many lives as possible. We have viewed numerous body cam videos, and it shows a handful of EMTs who were able to be inside the school before law enforcement stormed the rooms, mostly Border Patrol agents. But that was not enough to take care of the 21 victims they would find inside.
Once the threat is neutralized, you transition into rescue. And the rescue includes law enforcement initiating treatment right away when they make entry.
Ari Jimenez is a retired agent in charge for Homeland Security. He now trains first responders for these type of situations.
Everybody's out of here, right? Yes. Then we're going to go clear more buildings.
He viewed the new body camera videos we obtained. In one of the videos, it appears Border Patrol agents were inside of the school, setting up a rescue task force. 22 to 25 minutes before the breach.
I need to grab my med kit for my thing. They say there's multiple victims in the room.
But not all protocols were followed by other agents, according to Jimenez.
When you move them from the location, you move them directly to an ambulance and go straight to a trauma center. You are fighting time. You do not want to delay treatment. You want to do it as fast as possible. So, of course, in the video, you cannot tell in detail where Fire EMS was, but you can actually see law enforcement removing the injured from the classroom and move them somewhere down the hallway to be treated. Precious minutes and seconds are lost, and unfortunately, you can see a lot of bleeding in that video.
While some of the victims may have died immediately due to their injuries, Jimenez says their training is clear about who decides who gets treatment.
Law enforcement do not decide who's a viable patient or not. That's why we need to work in conjunction with Fire EMS. Law enforcement never makes that decision. That's Fire EMS. Law enforcement treats everyone as a viable patient. Stop the bleeding right away.
More EMTs, anywhere between 20 to 25, were waiting with their ambulances in the vicinity within a couple of blocks.
Do y'all have units here? Because they told us we need to start moving all the units off this road.
Blocked by law enforcement vehicles in the middle of the streets. As we have reported before,
Hey, hold the channel!
the radio system failure that day also contributed to the chaos in stopping the shooter, and it worked against the rescue efforts, and it still has not been corrected as of today. Back in September, we spoke to Juan Martinez, Assistant Director of EMS Operations for Uvalde. Martinez explained then that they had no communications coming out from the inside of the school on their radios, frustrations that grew when he had to argue with law enforcement to be allowed in the building after the breach to ensure everyone who needed help was receiving it.
We never made it in the building, so to speak. Everybody was brought out to us.
It was a known failure.
Do we need to fix our radio problem in Texas, do you think, in rural Texas?
One that existed long before these 19 children and their 2 teachers were killed in May here in Uvalde's Robb Elementary.
You guys are going to have kids come down on Oak Creek.
I'm sorry again, Senator. In rural Texas, do we need to fix our radio problems?
Is he answer the radio?
It's me. This is classroom.
Cover those windows, guys.
That system needs to be replaced.
And it is a failure that still has not been corrected, with children going back to Uvalde schools in just a few days.
If I have to pull them, I will.
A failure that some believe may have cost the lives of children and teachers.
The room is full of victims
Who were still alive inside the classrooms.
Please put your firearm down, sir.
With the shooter.
Uvalde radio check.
and one that shockingly has been known about since 2015. First responders' radios that don't work in schools, buildings, and in dead zones, not only in Uvalde, but in the 9 counties that make up this council of government, or COG. So who knew of the problems and for how long?
Have you ever gotten any communications from the Mid-Valley Rio Grande COG about replacing that system or upgrading that system?
I don't, not to my knowledge.
But that is not true. Fox San Antonio has obtained emails between DPS Director McGraw, seen here during the Robb Elementary Senate hearing, and the members of the Middle Rio Grande Council of Governments. The emails date back to May of 2015 and deal with the aging system. In them, the former Homeland Security Director for Uvalde and head of 911 is telling someone that he has invited DPS to be at the table to discuss the issue in the region, meaning the radio system. Anderson replies that DPS Director McGraw has told him that he has no money to support it, even though troopers are using it also. In the emails, we also read a part where McGraw responds telling Anderson that the senior leadership in the governor's office is aware of the issue.
I don't, not to my knowledge.
We are consistently told at many, many levels that the system is, quote, too big to fail. Well, it's a big system, but it has failed on occasion.
This is me right here.
7 years later, county emergency leaders in this area say the system is showing its age and lack of maintenance because of funding.
It's like a vehicle. If you don't change the oil, if you don't change the battery, if you don't take care of that, those systems will fail, and radio systems are no different.
The counties are expected to pay for all of it. They have 3,000 local first responders, but the radio system is now busting at the seams, trying to support hundreds of DPS troopers, over 1,200 National Guard members, and some federal agencies in support of Operation Lone Star. So when the unthinkable happened on May 24th,
Child called 911 saying the room is full of victims.
it was the perfect storm.
The room is full of victims.
With more than 400 first responders descending on Uvalde to use the overburdened radio system.
I have had meetings with the governor's staff, and we had again, Chief Nim Kidd was present at that meeting. The governor's chief of staff, Mr. Sines.
In 2015, the answer to the request for $18 million to keep the system going back then was no. Every year after that, every request has been met with less money than the $30 million now needed because of the amount of work that needs to be done. Even after the incident on May 24th, the failure of the communication line for first responders continues to fail. Can you walk into any of the schools here? Can you walk into City Hall? Can you walk into your civic center and be able to communicate?
Short answer is no. We've tested this. We've been doing school walkthroughs prior to school start. And we've been taking our handheld radios, we've been testing them to make sure that we are capable of utilizing that system, and it is not functioning inside the schools right now.
Or for that matter, outside.
On a wildland fire that's 100 acres or more, I can't communicate with my firefighters out there on the line. Why? Because the radios are jammed.
This fire in Kinney County forced Henry Garcia, the EMS Director of Emergency Management, to buy walkie-talkies to fight this fire back in March.
When I can't communicate with firefighters in a live fire, that's a safety issue. Somebody's going to get hurt. I resort to go out buying what we call the Disneyland radios, so we can talk to one another because our radio system doesn't work.
What's the Disneyland?
The little, what people wear, so little walkie-talkies that you get for $12 at the dollar store. And that's what we use to communicate out on the fire line.
The system, which was built as a result of September 11th, was state-of-the-art in 2003. 19 years later, It is dying, but what is also adding to the problem is the added users sent by the governor and DPS Director McGraw for Operation Lone Star.
We have had meetings with DPS requesting funding, and it's fallen on deaf ears, to the point that we were even told at one time that they were going to build their own system.
Are we failing you? Are we, the people of the state of Texas, failing you, the communities that are on the border right now, not providing you what you need?
I'm thinking maybe the state of Texas doesn't understand. Maybe there's some lack of communication there.
The fact is, government failed these folks, and it failed them before May 24th. It failed them on May 24th, and it's failed them ever since.